Hi there, it's Richard Little from Your Land Partner with you once again. Had a few tech issues at the start of this video, so this is take two on a different, well, I don't know what I'm on now. Anyway, had tech issues anyway, so basically, right, okay. Video 62 of 100. We are at possibly the last video in the section on planning. We're going to be talking about, or I'm going to be talking about strategy. It may well be that this will develop into two videos, give people an opportunity to perhaps ask some questions between today and tomorrow. So what am I talking about? Strategy. Strategy here in its truest definition is effectively, or its simplest definition, is a plan of action. How do we get from A to B? Route map, etc., etc. You know, sat nav, whatever you want to call it. It is not as commonly used strategy in property. I do developments, I do HMOs, I do serviced accommodation. That may or may not be a strategy. Sorry, got to straighten the device up, see if I can prop it up. But we're talking about strategy, how we are going to get from A to B. Now, the two key things that we need to understand before we start off is what are the obstacles going to be and what are our options to get around them, over them, under them, through them, whichever way. So the first thing we really need to understand is where we're trying to get to. What are we trying to achieve? Yeah. So we look at strategy right at the very beginning when we're appraising a project, and then we're moving that through to putting a deal structure together, negotiations and all that sort of stuff. Because once you understand the options that you have open to you by using the planning system, then that will affect, or should have a great impact potentially on how you structure your deals. Timelines are one of the things that people slip up with, quite frequently, whether you're negotiating perhaps on an option or something like that, or maybe a conditional purchase subject to planning, not giving yourself enough time or putting the right conditions in the contracts, in the agreements to allow for extensions of time because you're at a certain point, so reach certain milestones. So strip this right back to the beginning is whatever it is, whatever project you're looking at, what are you trying to achieve? So you could be trying to achieve an existing building, you want to turn it into 4 flats. Yeah, or it could be an existing factory that you want to demolish and turn into 40 new homes, or it could be a garden that you want to split off and put one house into. Anything that's development, obviously. The point is, if you need planning for it, we really need to understand, say, what the obstacles and what our options are. So there's a number of ways that we can look at this, but what I'm probably going to do is take you through the way that we do it. It doesn't mean to say because we do it there aren't other ways around it, but it's absolute key that you understand how the planning system can work against you and how you can work the planning system to minimize the impact of that. There aren't many people that watch this, including those that are actually making it, i.e. me, that don't have I haven't had some frustrations through the planning system. But it may well, if you haven't heard me talk about planning before, it may seem a bit harsh, but it's not often the system that's the issue. It's the way that we don't understand the system. And we aren't going to change the system as single people or even as a group of people. It changes. And it always needs changing, like anything else, for improvement. But as soon as we've got some changes, some people will say, yeah, it's better. Some people will say, no, it's not. We'll be looking for the next lot of changes. The suggestion from me, and not just me, but other people that have been around this sort of sector quite a while, is suck it up. It's what it is. And understand it. If you don't understand it fully, you need somebody in your core team that certainly does, because as we will all accept, that planning is where we add maximum value from a managed perspective. So let's look at what we've possibly got. No, let me explain what people normally do. So they have a scheme. It doesn't really matter what the scheme is. It could be anything, and that is what they're looking to achieve. So to use an example, we want to get 6 houses, so we're going to ask for 8. Pretty basic negotiation tactics. Do you know what? It works. It doesn't always work, but it generally works. If you ask for what you want, then you're going to end up probably getting less. So pretty basic stuff. So you need to come up with schemes that give you a margin for negotiation. So always expect that. So that's not really an obstacle. Most of the stuff comes under obstacles or options as we talk through this, but it can be, because you create the obstacle yourself. Shouldn't be an obstacle, but it's self-created. So obstacles aren't always where other people put in front of you. It's often what we put in front of ourselves, and that obviously impacts and all areas of our lives in many ways. So it's having that understanding of, right, okay, where we're trying to go to. Here's our scheme. So what people do is they may well pay for the correct advice, planning consultants, architects, draw it up, etc., pre-app, go through all the process, and they put it in. And then they wait for it to come out the other end. If they're a bit cute and a bit smart, they might do a bit of lobbying, and we're going to cover this in more detail as we go through. And then it comes out and it's refused. What's the next plan of action? And for most people, and I'm sorry, even experienced people, it's been refused, now what are we going to do? So when we are strategizing on multiple schemes, multiple proposals for the same site, for the same project. Now, of course, if you're looking simply to get an extension on a property and it goes over and above perhaps permitted development, if it's on a domestic property, then, there aren't too many different ways that you can actually do it. So I do appreciate that sometimes you are restricted on your options or your alternative scheme designs, etc. But the sort of stuff we do, there are always options, and they should always be driven by the exit. They should always be driven by demand, whether it's what you prefer to do or what the market is asking for. That's generally how we get the balance between maximum return and actual delivery. Anyway, right, okay, so what happens is most people work on an end-on basis. So they go through the process, and if it doesn't work out well, they go through the process again. Now, so one of the first things we look to do when we're strategizing and we're looking at our options is, okay, how many planning applications and routes could we actually use here? So as an example, or a general example rather than a case study, is if you've got a building that is possibly eligible for some sort of permitted development, for instance, then it may well be that you sort of say, well, okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to use a commonly used stepped approach. So we're going to go and we're going to get that change of use, get the paperwork sorted out in terms of, we can convert those offices or factory into residential units, for instance. And then once we've got that and established that, then we can go back in probably for some full planning, normally for windows and doors, but more and more now is extra stories on the roof, etc. But what you're doing is you're using a stepped approach for the planning so that we're gaining paper value as we go through, which obviously makes you feel a lot easier, and it also is much safer to do that financially. So understanding what you can do. I mean, of course, the alternative to that is don't bother to get the PD, just go straight in for full planning. And is that sometimes the right thing to do? Yes, it may well be. And sometimes the right thing to do is do both at the same time.